And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the Tool Belt, episode 272. I am your host, Ty Cobb-Backer. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition. Today, we have another special guest. Stay tuned. We will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. TC Backer, TC Backer.
Welcome to Behind the Tool Belt, where the stories are bold, the conversations are real, and the insights come to you live, raw, and uncut. Every week, host Ty Cobb-Backer sits down with game changers, trailblazers, and industry leaders who aren't afraid to tell it like it is. No filters, no scripts, just the truth. Please welcome your host of Behind the Tool Belt, Ty Cobb-Backer.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, on this magnificent Wednesday. And hopefully it's not raining where you are because the sun is shining. Finally, feels like spring is upon us. So today we have another amazing guest. We'd like to introduce you to the Behind the Tool Belt. She has nearly 2 decades of experience in the gutter guard industry. She is the president and CEO of Micro Mesh Gutter Guards and many other achievements that I'm sure she will share with us. Let's welcome Karen Sager with Micro Mesh Gutter Guards. How are you, Karen?
I'm fine, thank you, Ty. Many thanks for having me here today.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. So I've gotten spoiled because usually I have a bunch of my buddies that come on within the roofing industry on the podcast, and we kind of just chop it up and drop golden nuggets and stuff. And so it's been a minute since I've had somebody on the show that I don't know personally, which is a shame because it sounds like you've been in our industry for a long time. And of course, I've been in it, 30 plus years myself. So it's a shame that we haven't crossed paths sooner, I think, but that's okay. There's no better time than now. And, I think it's, with the research that Vic has helped me dig up on you, it seems like you have achieved a lot of amazing things. And I admire you. And I'm going to explain to you why I admire you, because a lot of people are on social media today and they're all over the place and they're showing these glam shots and how big I am and all of these things. But I feel like you've kind of moved in silence. You've created this empire, this gutter guard micro mesh that, just so you know, we've used micro mesh for a long time. Surgically, the surgically metal, steel that is on top of it. I love it. That was one of our biggest selling features, was the surgically, metal, stainless steel metal that is on top of it, that it won't rust and all that good stuff. But you have accomplished so much, and I know so little about you, and I don't know, maybe just the circles that I run in and the circles that you run in. There's not a lot that I know about you outside of, a few little bullet points that we've been able to dig up on you. So with having said all of that, on your entrepreneurial journey, transitioning from banker into the gutter space, like let's talk about that. Like what that was like, that transition, how you got here and what it's like now.
So I was actually supposed to be a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. I had my second son. He was very young at the time, and my brother came to me with an opportunity and said, "Hey, I found this product. It's called Leaf Filter. I think it's really cool. Take a look at it. Would you be willing to back me financially?" And I said, okay. It looked different. It looked really different. He was a kid at our house when I was young, who my mom sent up to climb the ladders and clean out the gutters. And so then he bought a house where he was under a lot of trees. I lived in a house where we had 12 old oak trees over the house. So, right now is the season where the oak trees start to bud, and oak trees are tremendously dirty because they dump stuff 4 times at least in the spring. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, this is cool. I could use it. I see a lot of people could use it, and sure, I'll back you. So from there, suddenly is like, well, could you do this for me? Could you do that for me? And again, I had young kids, but I could manage some of that. So I started doing that and just got more and more involved, and, move ahead many, many years. We left Leaf Filter pretty fast because of the issues we were having with the product at the time. And we moved to Master Shield, which was Alex Higginbotham's, the inventor of Leaf Filter, the original inventor of Leaf Filter. And from there, I've worked with Alex alone since 2008. He's subsequently retired. I bought the company from him. And now I'm the one that's adding patents to our portfolio, because we found things that we can, I found things that we can just do differently and better than, and a way to separate ourselves from everybody else that can call themselves a micromesh too. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the long and the short of it. And yeah, I'm not somebody that is not, I'll put myself out there when I have to, but I've not really been crazy in the public.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. That's for sure. And I admire that about you so much. I thought that, sometimes I was actually asked this question, because we don't put a lot of stuff. Yes, I do a podcast every week. But we achieve a lot with our local community and throughout the roofing industry. And we don't promote a lot of that stuff. And somebody asked me one time, are you being humble or are you hiding? And I couldn't answer that question right away. I had to really think about it, because what I discovered about it is, so our team, it's not even me anymore. It's a we thing. Okay. So what I discovered about that is how selfish and self-centered was that of me by not promoting our team's accomplishments, whether it's celebrating with them on social media or hosting an event in the celebration of the achievements and things like that. So I've gotten better, because I'm not that guy that wants to, just throw everything out there on social media. Hey, look at me, the Lambo. I don't even own a Lamborghini, but I've never been one of those guys to say, hey, look at me. And of course, Vic, tries to promote the stuff that we do as best as we can, but as humbly as we possibly can too, because, I guess it's that fear of, God, what if we fail, or what if we make a fool of ourselves? But anyhow, I admire you so much for all the amazing, things that you have done. And, it's funny, because I was thinking to myself, one of the questions I ask a lot of people is one is work-life balance and things like that. But I think before we dive into that, because obviously you're a mother and I'm sure you're a fantastic and amazing mother, but when you had that transition or that decision that you had to make, okay, I'm a stay-at-home mom and now transitioning over to wearing the CEO hat, how did you do that? Did you have to educate yourself? Did you have to get a coach? Did you have to get a mentor? And because there's a paradigm shift that has to happen, right? Not that it's much different than managing a household than managing a business at times, because it is an adult daycare center. But how did you do that? And what did you have to do to make that transition?
Well, I came from corporate banking, so I was in a structured world for, just a little bit shy of me deciding to become a stay-at-home mom. So that I was used to a very structured lifestyle. And so from that perspective, it wasn't even about managing a household. It was I thrive in this world. I thrive in a world where day to day is not the same. And so when you say, did you have to educate yourself? Heck yeah. Suddenly, I came from analyzing financial statements to going, we need a marketing campaign. Okay. And, oh my gosh, every time we hire somebody to do something, they make four out of 10 changes we ask them to make. If you did that in the banking world, pack yourself up and walk out the door, because that would, you wouldn't last very long if you made that many, you took shortcuts and you didn't make that many changes. So I came in with just a fantastic background that just I could apply anywhere. And then it was I'm just a naturally curious person. So, when people would say, you can't do that, I would be like, well, why not? Right. So, you can't, you can only sell a gutter guard to a gutter company. Well, why? Um, you can't pitch a gutter guard like a roof line. Well, why not?
Mhm.
And, our big thing now, which is copper in our stainless steel filter to kill moss, lichen, and algae. I went to the people that weave micromesh cloth and I said, I want this. And they're like, no, you can't do that. And again, another, why not? And sure enough, close to, I think we got our first sample about 10 years ago and we put it in the field 10 years ago. And now look at us, it's going into more and more of our stuff. And we just got another patent on it. I guess I found out just yesterday that I'm getting another patent on that technology. So if you ask me, did I think I was going to wind up patenting? No, I would say no, that was Alex's thing. And then, there's just been ways to just constantly say, why not? So for me, it's more of a mission of what I'm trying to accomplish because I came from a world of risk and my husband's still in the risk analysis world. And if we can't sleep at night because we've taken on too much risk, I wouldn't be doing this. So it's like, okay, what can I do to reduce risk? How can I make it better? One better. So it's more about having that sort of philosophy of a mission of making of changes that actually make a difference. That is more my driving factor. And along the way, self-teaching, book teaching, moving into coaching. Coaching was okay. I actually wound up finding a mastermind group that I really, really like. And it's broad. So going, something that you said before about, putting yourself out there. Well, how do you scale when it's you? That was a big thing that I kind of got a handle on early on. It's got to be, whenever I've looked at a business, even as a banker, it was looking at it as an individual. You've created an entity. Call them a person for lack of a better term. But they need to be nourished and treated right and respected and all those same things to become what they can become. And so ours is more mission than let's go out there and grow for growth's sakes and hope that we don't get a lot of people calling us because gosh, when, you're sitting at a baseball game on a Friday night and the phone rings because it rained yesterday and you wind up with another homeowner calling to say, my gutter guard's failing and it's your fault. I mean, that was the call we never wanted to get.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Of course. I think that's every entrepreneur's nightmare is getting that call, especially over the weekend or on a Sunday or Monday morning, following up with all those emails and stuff like that. So no, I get that. So from what I'm gathering is that, so your banking background has helped you in many ways, becoming an entrepreneur and traveling down that. So what ways do you think, because I know that's something that, at least for me, I didn't have a banking background or an accounting background or even a business degree, right? I just, decided roofing kind of just found me and here we are today. So how do you think, but from coming from the financial world, how do you think you've applied that? And how do you think that has helped you in so many ways over the years in your business today?
Let me say I've used it in different ways at different times. So first of all, it was just coming out of a corporate job where you saw how companies held themselves, right? It was a level of professionalism that was starting at the lowest position as just an analyst and moving up to a vice president, how you're supposed to present yourself in a situation. Mm-hmm. It taught me negotiating. It taught me, how to read legal documents and then how to read financial statements. On the financial statement side, it just meant that everything I looked at, I knew how to look at from, gross profit, EBITDA, all the things to keep a company profitable. And I would say most recently, I want to say about 3 years ago now, it actually wound up changing my whole marketing approach because I focused on the fact that a lot of roofers and remodelers struggle they went through the boom years of COVID. They made a lot of revenue, but did that revenue actually turn into profit, pocketable income for you as the entrepreneur? Because you got to pay everybody else along the way. Did you price everything right so that you were actually making a decent living?
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, we found people starting business or existing businesses that said to themselves, I'll be just a little bit less than the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't realize the next guy was having a problem keeping his lights on, right? Yeah. So and then just delving into business stuff where it was just like, there's not a direct correlation between raising your price and having that many fewer people buy from you. That was a big aha moment for me. You mean we can raise our price by X% and it doesn't mean X% less will buy? Yeah, that's just the facts. Just do a good job and offer a better service than anybody else. And it should correlate direct. It shouldn't change anything. And you wind up meeting salesperson after salesperson where somebody in the organization tells the story was that guy said, this will never work, and then made more money than he ever did just by the owner, a rising tide floats all boats. So everybody rises when you win. And as long as you provide a quality service, and we're all in the service business, right? We're here to do a good service for the people that we support. Then you can walk around with your head held high, charging the prices that you do for the goods that you sell.
Yeah, no, I love that. We recently had, our team promotes, TC Backer a lot on social media, and we do a lot of local ads and campaigns and things like that, because that's where you market today, right? That's where you put yourself, your presence, and in hopes people call you or at least get, some touch points and bring brand awareness. So there was a local group. And this was one of my fears, why we hesitated, I think, for so long to put ourselves out on social media is somebody had recommended us in a Facebook group. And I saw, I guess the post was, I'm looking for an affordable roofer. And two people, so somebody from our team put our name in there, TC Backer, and one of our local worthy rivals had mentioned they said that they had said an affordable roofer, meaning that we're not, affordable. Right. So, because they don't understand, and it actually was somebody that had worked for us about 2 years ago that decided to go out on their own. And, of course, right away, I want to fire back and, because they don't understand value and they don't understand their worth, and they're not, and I started thinking they're not going to stay sustainable for longevity. And they don't, and that's the thing. I used to not charge enough to. I think we all go through that. I think in the early stages that we think everybody wants to go with somebody cheap. And it's not always about that. It's not, it's what it's costing you today. Are you going to be able to afford it later when it costs you even more money because you had somebody come out that didn't do a very good job? And really, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. So pay for, in a roofing and gutters and a good product. That stuff's not cheap. It's not cheap. Stainless steel, for micromesh, that's not cheap. But what you're paying for is the value and how long it's going to last. It's like the last time you're ever going to have to buy gutter guards. So, and if you can articulate that message well enough to a homeowner, like, yes, I know we're a little more expensive, but let me show you apples to oranges here. Like, this product here won't last as long, transferable warranties, whatever the case might be. But there's so many contractors out there today. And why I'm touching on this is because of the experience that you had prior to coming into the space that you're in now. So many of us lack all of those experiences, whether it's reading legal documentations, whether it's the art of negotiation, whether it's just, running a business where it's just more than being on a roof all day long. And that's where I came from. I came from the labor side, the production side of things, into the actual business CEO position of our company. I'm a first generation roofing contractor. So it has taken me, and this is one of the unfair advantages that you have had, is coming from where you came from by knowing how to read P&Ls, EBITDA. A lot of people don't even know what EBITDA is, more so today because of private equity being in our space. But 3-4 years ago, nobody knew what EBITDA was, prior to PE coming into our space. But so what would you recommend for a company that's been in business? Because unfortunately, 80% of us roofing contractors go out of business in the first 4 years because of what you're talking about. Okay. So what would you recommend for somebody getting or thinking about getting into our space? Like, what would be the first things that they should do and educate themselves, and what tools should they have?
Gosh, well, a financial statement is an easy thing, or just a way of just modeling. Let's call it a simple model. Like, so you have to start with understanding your costs and then putting the appropriate value on top of that. So you really want to make sure your gross profit is the number that you're starting with. It's not the be all and end all, but if you don't get your pricing right vis-a-vis your gross profit, which is, it's just your, what you're going to charge minus your material costs, your labor costs, and in a lot of times in our industry, you'll put in your commission in there, because those are the big three expenses. So that number has to be a sustainable number. And I can't tell you how often when I talk to roofers and I ask them what that is, it's like 25% or less there. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think you can get it with a roof, but with gutter guards, you can hit close to 70, over 70 gross profit. So I would start with, starting to pick numbers that you'll have a sense of what your costs are, back into that number. Secondly, gosh, a good sales training course is magic. You can't go in and wing it. You can't presume that people will buy on personality. 7 to 10 steps to the sale it's existed since the 1950s or 40s. Who even knows how long, because it works. I think you can modernize it. We're very conscious of that. And people buy perceived value, right? They have to, your presentation to make that sale has to get that value across. And if you do a good enough job, most of their objections should be handled even before you get to present price. So you're kind of negotiating with just one thing. Mm-hmm. Then a big thing from our perspective is, how are you going to differentiate yourself in the market? We like to talk about selling in a category of one. And that means our product does these things differently than everybody else. So you cannot compare it to every other micro mesh. And by doing that, because they can't get it anywhere else, you're able to charge a premium for it. So that could just be as simple, for somebody just getting started, of just, rather than saying, I'm going to be a roofer and I'm going to go sell X brands shingles, you're just going to sell a shingle and install it on a roof. That doesn't differentiate you from anybody in the market. But creating a roofing system can suddenly start differentiating yourself. That could be the type of ridge vent that you choose to use. It could be how you flash. It could be that you add a gutter guard to be part of that roofing system. So a roof starts at the ridge vent and goes all the way to the front lip of the gutter. Those things in your storytelling become who you are. And it, again, adds value and allows you to charge more, but also serve better as well. So I'm trying to, and then from there, my last piece would be, start putting in systems early, so often and early, right? Because private equity won't talk to you if you are it's still very apparent that you as the owner are still working in the business rather than on the business. if you can't step out, and shame on me, I'm not perfectly there. I'm not there yet. I'm working my way up that food chain. But I know that for a fact. They will, if they talk to you, they want to see a business that's completely systematized. So start creating your workflows and your standard operating procedures as fast as you can. It makes training people on a process so much easier. And then as you get bigger, you're refining that, but that's definitely, then you start to rely on who, not how. You move out of the who, which is you a lot of the times as you're getting started, into the how. How are we going to get this done? So
good.
I think I said that backwards, so I apologize.
Yeah.
You want to put a who in and stop learning the hows. That's what I meant to say. Excuse me.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not how am I going to do this? It's who am I going to get to do this for me?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I've been on that mission for probably 10 years and still haven't perfected it yet myself either. I still tend to get in the weeds on a lot of things. That's so funny you say that. But, getting back to, the P&L, and this is kind of how I broke it out. And I loved how you mentioned, the gross profit, because I think a lot of people run their business off of gross profit. Yes, it is very important. And you need to know what it is that you're shooting for in order to allow enough money up there in the gross profit to have your overhead eat away at that. Right. And still have enough net profit. Right. Because that's really where the real flex is, because everybody's so worried about revenue, like how much revenue. But the way that I've broke it out into layman's terms for myself is it really starts with every proposal that you send out, because just like you had mentioned, in your proposal should be your labor cost, should be your material cost, should be salesperson's commission cost, right? And then profit, overhead, and then grand total.
Financing?
Yeah.
If you're putting financing on?
Yeah, exactly. So really, on a micro scale, no pun intended, on a micro scale that's how you come up with your gross profit. So if I'm bidding work with a 20% net profit per job, that translates into my gross profit for the company. You know what I mean? But if I'm saying to all my salespeople, like, look, we have to have a 50% profit on each job. Okay, then that's going to translate into a 50% gross profit on my P&L. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You are 100% correct.
Yeah. So that's how I've tried to break it out and explain it to the rest of the team as I'm trying to pass the torch to somebody. Like, look, if you're bidding stuff, whether it's a commercial project, if it's Section 8, whatever projects, it could be retail, it could be storm, could be new construction. If we're not hitting our net profit on per job at 40%, we're not going to have a 40% gross profit, considering the fact that I think a lot of people don't know how, and this could be a whole nother podcast, is how to determine what your overhead is, right? And what percentage of that is my overhead, but overhead is fuel, electric energy bills, utilities, like anything that it takes outside of your cost of goods sold, right? Anything below that, the gray area. Right. I call that the gray area down there. All these things that just chew up that gross profit. That's everything from health insurances to new computers. Everything in that, all of that, just marketing. Right. Like
marketing, or the truck that suddenly needs a new transmission.
Yes.
You got to plan for that, right? You need a slush fund to make sure that those things don't suddenly knock all your numbers off, right?
Absolutely. And paying attention to the bottom line. So I think, for me, if I had to explain to anybody, like, first and foremost, figure out what your gross, what you're shooting for. And I think the national average for roofing contractors, it's not hard to find. Just Google it. It's somewhere between, I think, 35 and 50% gross profit, right? So I know that's kind of broad. So we try to stay somewhere between 40, 45. I'd like to see 50. But then that requires a whole lot of work of beating the shit out of, distribution, and then not paying a good wage to, your subcontractor or employees or whatever the case might be. So there's a fine delicate there. But what it comes down to, like you had mentioned earlier, we can charge more and people will still go with us. Like that's a simple but not easy concept to implement, because I think a lot of us, especially early on, think that we're going to be awarded more jobs is because we're cheap. Well, I don't want to be known because we're cheap. Right. And that's the thing. I think that's a moral question that you have to struggle or wrestle with yourself. Like, do I want to be known because I'm cheap? Or do I want to be known because I provide value and I'm here to serve? And I love how you mentioned serve, because ultimately at the end of the day, if our motives and our intentions are right and we're doing this, right, because we're here to serve and protect homes and protect homeowners and their shelter, that most people's most valuable possession is their home, right? And that's why I love this industry so much, whether it's gutters, windows, siding, whatever. I love this industry because we are protecting people's assets, right? Their most valuable possessions that they're raising their family, their kids, their animals, their pets, their dogs, right? Like we could do that every day. And you know what's cool about that is that we actually get paid to do this, right?
Right.
And really good at it because we're here to serve everybody. And it sounds like you do the same thing. But I know, do you got something you want to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say, so if you're in the 40, let's say just 10 point range, we'll talk about 40 to 50% range for your gross profit on a roof. That's where the little things that do add more value can just raise that number up a little bit. Install a higher end gutter guard, and that's where you get the margin. That's what I'm saying. It's the little extras. And you cannot you can't take cheap products and put them onto a sale like this, right? That's why the guy that is charging what he is not using the best hangers for gutters, the best vent caps or whatever it is. They're doing things and probably taking shortcuts that hurt the homeowner in the end.
Yeah.
And that's, that hurts your reputation, because from that perspective, people walk away and, people are less inclined to tout a great experience and more inclined to tell or put a review online or just tell everybody that they know about a problem that they had. I have a restaurant that I went to once, and to this day, I still tell the story about how bad that experience was, how you'll never forget, right? And so 10 years on, and it's still in my head, that's human nature. So just doing it right the first time just naturally leads people to quietly recommend you.
Yeah. No. So. And that's your brand. Your brand isn't necessarily you touting from the rooftops, micro mash, no, it's your clients. Your clients become your brand, whether it's good or it's bad. Hopefully it's good, right? But you want them touting your name from the rooftops because you've done such a great job. And when you were thinking, or when you were talking about, the quality of materials, right? Like you can use, an 027 gutter coil, or you can use an 032 gutter coil, right? There's so many different factors that, and I think like you were talking about, like the story behind it and educating the homeowner. I'm like, sure, yes, we could charge you $5,000 if you wanted to go with a lesser grade product. And I think that's a part of your story. I think that's a part of the value, that you're giving the homeowner is the education that they deserve, because a lot of guys will come in, they'll undercut you. They're using inferior products opposed to the inferior products, and us not doing a well enough job explaining our value of like, this is why the cost is what it is. Plus, we want to be here in 10 years to put the roof or the gutters on your next home too. And we can't do that if we're not charging enough today. And I think a lot of people live in the now, and it's like, and I think a lot of people do this too for just like a paycheck, and don't look at it as a business. And it's unfortunate because of our space. There's a lot of us out there that haven't been educated themselves financially and how to read a P&L and those types of things. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you a little bit, bring that up, of the importance of, it's just, it first and foremost, it's a lot more than just putting a roof on somebody's home. Okay. It's about understanding your numbers. It's about providing value, and it's about being here and staying sustainable, and not just having an impact on homeowners' lives, but those that you bring into your organization, right? If you're not tracking enough, you can't give paid vacations. You can't have 401ks. You can't have, health insurance plans. People, you want to make it a career, right? For someone to come here, not just a job or a stepping stone. Like, you want people to come into your organization, if you take pride in this thing, and have families, buy the second and third minivan, to have the extra Harley Davidson in the garage, and all of the buy home. And for me, that's been one of my highlights of my career, is when, we had two people off around the same, I think it was around the same time frame, that were out on leave for pregnancy, like that. They trusted us enough, right, to create a family, to bring a human being into this world because of the safety and the security that they felt at their place of employment, right? And we can't do these things, right, if we're not charging enough money. So if anyone's listening to this and they're struggling, like, oh man, I'm afraid to charge more money. Well, wouldn't the person that's helped you build this thing, or taking care of some things that you don't have quite time to do, wouldn't they like a raise someday? Wouldn't they like to be able to buy a home someday? Wouldn't they like to, go on vacation with their family and still get paid while they're on vacation, at least 40 hours while they're on vacation? So, these are all things that I take into consideration, because at first it was very, very uncomfortable for me to raise our prices. But when you start looking at it from a different perspective of serving, right, it totally changes everything. At least it did for me. The paradigm shift and the feeling that it gave me, of the confidence that it gave me, like, this is why we're doing this for you. You know what I mean? This hasn't been about me for a long time, but unless you want to add something else to that, I'd love to talk about your patent on your copper and explore that a little.
I will very quickly add one thing to the equation. I think every business needs to figure out in this space, one, a reoccurring revenue stream, because that keeps you in front of that homeowner. And then two, I'm going to forget it now. Recurring revenue, and it's going to pop into my head in a second. Oh, dang. But and a fast to cash product. Duh, that's what we do. So a gutter guard can be installed on a Monday. Sold on a Monday and installed on a Wednesday. No permits required. So having something in your business that is, again, naturally high margined, that can feed cash into your organization rather than, the time delays on other things, or it's a way to use technicians to sell when there's downtime, sell and install when there's downtime. It's a way to cross-sell when your technicians sell. There's so many things you can do here to kind of think outside the box. And again, and then offer something to keep that roof in shape over time. There's a missed opportunity if you're not looking for a way to continue that service beyond just the initial transaction. Stop thinking transactionally and think about relationships, because that is something that isn't done much in this industry that has a lot of value to any of your listeners here today. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, so good. I'm glad you did. That's so good. Reoccurring revenue. I love it. That's definitely a good nugget, because I need to be more intentional about that myself. So I know someone's going to get something out of that. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you remembered what the heck it was. So yes, the gutter. Okay. So at first the copper. Okay. You said that they said, the manufacturer that's making the mesh said that you couldn't go with copper. How did you overcome that? Like, what was the workaround for that? Or how did you convince them that you could put copper in the mesh?
I just said, just do me a favor, humor me and try. Just make me a little, I'll pay for whatever it is you have to make. Before you say no, does it not go into the machine the same way? Is that the problem? They really didn't have an answer. And they basically came back to me and said, okay, we'll try. And they had, first time it had ever been done before, and they did it, and we've never looked back. Then what we had to do was field test it. So it's a theory. Everybody knows that copper kills, all the roofing companies put copper granules in their roof to kill moss, lichen, and algae. Unfortunately, there's never enough of it in the roof by the time all that water flows down to the gutters. So I couldn't just rely on the fact of the roof was going to do enough to solve this problem at the gutters. And, you think about it, we're installing in places like the Pacific Northwest. We're installing in super humid places like Atlanta, where they get lots of pollen, lots of pine trees, and just, heavy humidity. Florida, Texas, these places, they either get gully washers or they get, they're just in a situation where you just never know what you're going to be up against. So here was an opportunity to take some product, stick it in the Pacific Northwest. We field tested it in Seattle, and then we also field tested it in Atlanta. We left it there for years, 4 years to prove it. Nobody trusted that it was going to do what it was going to do. Every time people would go out and look, still working. The copper would clog, this would happen. None of the above. And eventually I said, this is just, we just got to stop testing and do. Mm-hmm. So we put it out there, and it's, it's changed the lives of people in the organization. It's changed the lives of companies that sell it. And that's just because it doesn't get callbacks from these things. People, we're humans. We can have issues with an install, and that's just natural. But everything we've promised that copper can do, it has done. And we're really proud of it. Plain and simple. We're just really proud that it's there and it's part of the product. And I call it my sleep at night guarantee, but I offer it to everybody else too, because if I don't get the callbacks, nobody gets the callbacks.
Mm-hmm. So. No, I love it. So explain to us, what, the theory is behind copper and why, a shingle manufacturer would put copper granules in it. For those that may not understand why it's such a big deal that you came up with this idea of putting copper, in your gutter guard system.
Well, copper is a natural antimicrobial. When it comes to things like moss, lichen, and algae, which are the big buildups that we all deal with, it actually causes the spores of the whatever we're talking about, moss, lichen, or algae, to burst. So these little things that you can't see that are just in the air, that you just never know where it's going to wind up being a problem for you. It just once it hits the water and the copper together, it just causes the spores to burst, and then you don't get the buildup. Zinc strips are very common, but zinc gives out pretty fast when you think of the longevity of a roof. So zinc just doesn't do enough for long enough. And copper just keeps on giving. Just think about all the old churches and stuff that, old government buildings that you see out there with copper. Some of that copper is almost 100 years old in some places. So It just lasts and keep giving and giving and giving. Wow. So it will ultimately sacrifice itself, because there's, somebody was thinking, but copper, you're mixing metals. Yes. And it will give itself up over time, but we're talking about a really long time. So funny story, or just a little aside, the building that I manufacture our gutter guards in is the same building where the company that renovated the Statue of Liberty worked from. They had a face of the Statue of Liberty up on the wall, and now they're just across the street from me. So every now and then I can look in and see it. But they knew about copper. So when I was in the process of going through this designing this product, I went over to them saying, what can you do? And they're like, funny you should say that, because all of the new rivets that we're putting into the Statue of Liberty are stainless steel rivets. And they said what they found out was that it forms a coating on itself. So it helps buffer. But secondly, when they went to the old rivets in the Statue of Liberty, when there was a piece of paper, because the guy didn't strip the paper off before he put the rivet in, those rivets were still lasting, because there was a boundary between the steel and the copper. So they went with stainless steel, and the Statue of Liberty as it stands there today has a history similar to the cloth and our gutter guards.
Wow. Amazing. That's an amazing story. So where are you guys located?
We manufacture in Paterson, New Jersey, which is right, I wouldn't call it, it's a city. So it's a city outside of New York City. It's about 20, maybe less than 20 miles from New York. I'm sure there are places that are tall enough certainly in the town that I live in, you can stand up on the high hills of the town and you can see the New York City skyline.
Wow. I had no idea that you were that close to us. We're right in York, PA. So what, maybe 3.5 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. I had no idea that you guys were that close. Amazing. Okay. All right. Well, cool. What now, can contractors buy directly, set up an account with Micromesh, or do we have to two-step it?
No, that's the best part. I mean, there's some places where we sell our gutter guards into distribution, but we don't think that it's worth doing that. You do pay shipping direct from us, but we will sell you gutter guards direct. So there's no markup from a distributor, which can be quite costly.
Yeah.
We look for dealers. So we're looking for somebody that kind of wants to make an investment in one of these products. And we try to keep our networks in a local geographic region, which we use television DMAs to do. So you're in York, so I think it's York, Lancaster, and there's one other city in your DMA. That would be your market. You could go anywhere in that market, and we're looking for a certain amount of footage. So and then we do have our like if somebody just wants to get their feet wet and just start working with a company that has programs, then we have a much more cost-effective gutter guard, and we allow people not to get in over their heads at first. We try to keep it simple, be successful here, and if you're really successful here, let's move you up to one of our higher end products, because you can do a lot more with that, and you've proven it. So
yeah, no, great. I love that story about the Statue of Liberty, because growing up in the roofing space, we always knew not to mix copper, because we do a lot of copper curved bay roofs and stuff, nothing real big, but there was quite a few of them in our area here that we used to install and probably still do. But we had to be careful with what type of fasteners that we were using as far as pop rivets and things like that. And it was always a big no not to mix like a regular roofing nail, with the apron flashing that went up against the house. We always had to use copper nails. So I guess, man, that's fascinating to know. But I love that story with the Statue of Liberty, and that your building is the building that they use to work out of. So what a small world, and what great history. That must be, something that you're very prideful over, I would imagine, being in that same building and that history that is there. So before we get off here, because I know you're very busy, is there anything else that, as far as, your product goes, or a personal nugget that you would like to drop, or anything that you would like to mention before we get off here for our listeners?
I would say it just from a product perspective, it's more than a product, it's a program. So we kind of listened, and we've got resources that I think are a little out of the ordinary. How to sell a gutter guard with a roof. Everybody, most people in your world are going to start with the roof, and not many businesses are going to want to change their existing sales presentation. So we've got a whole training module that goes around just to explain how you can drop things in at different parts of your presentation, so that you can turn that, roof shingle sale into a roofing system sale. We have training on how to train your techs to cross sell. We host clinics twice a week in sales and marketing that, in fact, people can just drop into one on a Wednesday afternoon, that they don't even have to be a customer of ours yet, but just if they just want to talk sales. This is for a smaller company, say, that doesn't have all the time to train their sales guys, but just wants that guy just always exposed to stuff. We do that all the time for people, because that's the who, not the how, will help.
Right. That's right. Exactly. No, that's good to know. And in getting back to education, and training, not just for homeowners, but for us contractors as well. We need that education. We don't know what we don't know. And I think that's great that you offer, that type of service, whether it be the module that people can watch, or the in-house or via Zoom training that you guys perform, because without that, that's a part of the story, right? Like that when we get in there and add the value and why we think that you should have gutter guard, and us being educated to educate the homeowner on why it is so important for them to even have gutter guards, let alone why go with the micro mesh product, because of, the parts, the pieces, the warranties, and all of those things that go into that. But before we get off here, there's somebody that had a question in there. And I'm assuming after they become a distributor or a vendor for you guys, would they be able to stop up there and pick it up? Or do you guys only ship?
Oh, no. You can stop in New Jersey and pick it up. Absolutely. We do it all the time.
Okay. So I just thought I saw that one. I can barely see it, but I did see that one question in there. Can you drive up and pick up? So there you go, Gio. Yes, you could swing in there and pick it up. So cool. Well, I think we're getting we got to be close to an hour here, I would imagine. Yep. Okay, cool. We're about 52 minutes into this. Again, is there anything else that you would like to leave us with today before we wrap this up?
I just for always try, the cheapest leads are your referrals, right? So your goal is to create a raving fan. Mm-hmm. And that can be done in many ways. And the people that pay the most are probably your biggest raving fans. It's probably the people that pay the least that turn into your customer that you're like, oh, why did I make the decision to do that? Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind, just as you choose the market, that you choose the locations you plan to work in, and how you present the products that you sell. I would also say in the current environment, we're seeing financing become something that if you can access it, you should, because people still need to do things even when they say, may you live in interesting times. I think we've got that box checked. Mm-hmm. But, you still have to do things even though times are interesting, right? So financing is a great tool to use to be able to do that and still be able to offer your customers the ability to get it done. I think that's key. And if you're bigger in uncertain times, that's an opportunity to take market share. Keep that in mind. Whereas a lot of companies pull back, there are opportunities, somebody sees somebody's hesitation as their opportunity. So I would say that's always a good thing to keep in mind just as the year folds out, next year and the year after, always keep that in the back of your head. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity for somebody. Should it be you? And the answer should be, yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, especially on the financing piece, because again, that just kind of goes into the fold of serving, right? Like if they can't afford it, but maybe they could afford $50 a month, for 5 years or 10 years. So being able to offer financing, I think is something, again, that we as contractors in the roofing space need a lot of education on as well, because people finance everything. They finance cars, they finance their kitchen. Sometimes might even finance their pets. You know what I mean?
Heck, you go on Amazon. You just go on Amazon and they ask you, do you want to finance this? I'm like, I'm buying, this
Yeah.
tiny little thing. Do I want to finance it? So
Absolutely. I agree.
People buy payments.
Hmm.
And if that payment helps them get to a better product or service, they see that as a win for them. They couldn't get there. They couldn't have gotten there any other way.
I love that. You're absolutely right. No, I love that. I love that. What a great way to end this episode, because it's so positive, and such a great nugget. So thank you so much, Karen,
Thank
for
you, Ty. Much
coming on the
appreciated.
show. I really enjoyed this conversation. I admit I was a little nervous, not hesitating, but nervous, because usually it's my buddy and we're just kind of grab assing on the, not really, but it's just but this was such a great conversation. So thank you so much.
You're very kind. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, carving out. I'm very inspired by your story, and I'm sure it's inspired somebody. I know people are getting something from this. So thank you for helping us serve our community. And I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in today. And I want to thank everybody who will catch us on the replay. If you haven't liked, loved, subscribed, or if you know somebody that may get something out of this episode, please share it with them, because I know for me, I was taking notes the whole time you were talking, Karen. So thank you for coming on the show. And thank you for everybody for watching. Until next week, take care of each other and stay tuned, because we'll have another great episode and guest coming on our show next week as well. So till then, thank you guys so much.